We already have, in a sense, launched the missiles with climate change. No matter what we do, from this moment forward, our climate will change. Already we've begun to experience the impacts of climate change. In my second year of office on Toronto City Council, microburst, a storm unlike any we've had before in the city of Toronto, wiped out Steeles Avenue and created the second largest insurance payout in Canadian history. That was the scale of the damage that 15 minutes of rainfall can cause now. Those kinds of storms simply didn't happen before. We recently went through an ice storm that rendered much of our infrastructure unusable. We just weren't prepared. Recent evidence from our Toronto Health Department indicates that in our near future, probably within my lifetime, it is extraordinarily likely that we will suffer an extreme heat emergency. A heat emergency like the one that was in Central Europe about 7 years ago, where tens of thousands of people died, or the one in the Midwestern United States, where 5,000 people died. Toronto Public Health estimates that there are at least 100,000 people in the city of Toronto who, because of a combination of their vulnerability and the way our infrastructure and habitats are currently configured, are at risk. We simply aren't ready, and we aren't prepared. Now, human beings have always tinkered with their ecosystem, and it's a rather frightening thought that many of our earliest settlements, many of the earliest areas where human beings are known to have settled, are now deserts. That is, I think, an indicator of how we have to rethink. I mentioned earlier a couple of examples of some of the problems we're going to be facing, but there are many, many more. For example, West Nile disease. I have a brother-in-law who actually was patient 6 in Ontario with West Nile. His health was impacted for a full decade. West Nile disease only got here because the climate conditions have changed. We have an infrastructure that's built for a temperature range, a precipitation range that will not exist 20 and 30 years from now. The buildings that we're building, the heating and cooling systems that we have in place, are built for the wrong climate. They're built for the wrong temperature range. The machines that are providing us fresh air and in the summer cooling this building are the wrong machines for what this building will have to contend with 10, 15, 50 years from now. Plumbing underneath this building is designed for the wrong water volumes and the wrong frequencies of intense rainfall events. Just built wrong. Our roads are built wrong. It's all built wrong. So we're going to have different conditions in terms of our physical biology. We're going to have different creatures living here, like the West Nile virus. We're also going to be facing tremendous refugee problems. In fact, an awful lot of the people who think and write about the future of climate change point to the Great Lakes as one of the islands of relative stability globally. So all the lists that I just gave you, that's the good case. This is an example of a community that will do well. No one's really got a very good model for how bad it's going to be in other parts of the world, but there are some early indications. In the latest Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, they worked with the World Health Organization to try to estimate what those problems will be. The estimates run into the hundreds of thousands of deaths annually from disease and from hunger and from the other kinds of things and heat waves. But beyond that, huge portions of the planet that are currently heavily inhabited will be rendered uninhabitable. No one's really quite sure, but the estimates range from the low hundreds of millions to just shy of 1 billion people who live in areas that will no longer be habitable by human beings within 50 years. In other words, the human migration that is coming is at least an order of magnitude larger than the human migration that took place in the 18th and 19th century, that huge period of colonial expansion. And if you think for a moment about how badly we handled that, us sitting here in the traditional lands of the Mississauga of the New Credit, and you ask yourself how well we will handle a problem 10 times that size, you realize that it really is a challenge to our imaginations and to our worldviews, how we will prepare, what resilience really does mean. I want to end with these thoughts. Many of the communities that we come from, many of the faiths that we belong to, or the belief systems that we endorse, have some part of the answer to how we become the kind of humanity that we have to become in face of these challenges. None of us, though, is prepared. The only way that we can prepare our imaginations is by conversations across faiths, across beliefs, drawing on the best of the different traditions available to us, and being prepared to alter our own beliefs to hear from those other communities, those other ways of being, those other ways of thinking.